I don't want it to become a national fire file. If it does come up, I'll just say you can clear it for a last meeting. And after that we weren't meshing. Yes, that's all I'm not. Right, yeah.
All right, welcome everybody. Glad you're here. We'll go ahead and start with the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. I'll go ahead and open up the regular city council meeting and call it to order. Time is 7 o'clock, and the Opens Meeting Act is posted on the rear wall next to the agendas. So at this time, we'll have roll call.
Please vote for roll call. Seven council members are present, Mayor.
Okay, in my comments tonight, I would like to take this opportunity to recognize a group of individuals in our city that do tremendous work. And upcoming May 19th through 25 is National Public Works Week. And so I do have a proclamation that I would like to read to recognize this group of individuals for their hard work. So whereas public works professionals focused on infrastructure, facilities, and services that are of vital importance to the sustainable and resilient communities and to the public health, high quality of life, and well-being of the people of the city of Fremont, Nebraska. And whereas these infrastructure, facilities, and services could not be provided without the dedicated efforts of the city's public works professionals in the street department, the parks department, the Department of Utilities, and engineering department, who are responsible for rebuilding, improving, and protecting our city's transportation, storm sewer network, public power system, water supply, water treatment, and our parks, public buildings, and other structures and facilities essential for our citizens. And whereas it is the public interest for the citizens, civic leaders, and children of the city of Fremont, Nebraska to gain knowledge of and maintain an ongoing interest and understanding of the importance of public works and public works programs in their respective communities. And whereas year 2024 marks the 64th annual National Public Works Week, sponsored by the American Public Works Association. So therefore, I, Mayor Joey Spellerberg, do hereby designate the week of May 19th through 2024 as National Public Works Week. And with us to help accept this proclamation, we have Utilities General Manager Jeff Shanahan, Assistant Utilities General Manager Troy Shaben, and Street Superintendent Carrie Hoffert. Would those three individuals please come forward, accept the proclamation for National Public Works Week? Thank you very, very much for all your efforts. We absolutely want to thank the hard work of our public works departments and the work. A lot of this work is done without anybody knowing, as in, these are, on the front lines, folks that every day show up, to do the work behind the scenes in the city to make our lives, in Fremont a better place to work, and live and raise a family. And so, definitely is appropriate to honor their work. And so thank you again very much for your efforts. That concludes my comments, and then we'll move on to item 1 on the agenda as a motion to adopt the current agenda for the May 14th, 2024 regular meeting. Motion to adopt the agenda. Councilman Von Baron,
Motion to adopt.
Councilman Sukram,
I'll second.
cast your votes.
The motion carries 7-0, Mayor.
We'll move on to item 2 under appointments. Is motion to approve the recommendation of the mayor to appoint Tina Barnum to the library board. It is my pleasure tonight to appoint Tina Barnum to the library board. She has a very diverse background. She has served with Covered Waters as the executive director. She has been a foster parent for many years, so she has a long history in our community, and also works with Aspire for Greatness. I think will be a fantastic addition to our library board. She just finished Leadership Fremont, which is a great program offered by the Fremont Area Chamber of Commerce. Graduated with honors actually last night. So congratulations to her. And so we really feel blessed to be able to welcome Tina to the library board and thank her willingness to volunteer in this position. So I would take any questions from the council on this appointment. If there are none, I'd take a motion to approve. Councilman Jensen,
I'll make the motion to approve the appointment of Tina Barnum to the library board.
Councilwoman Ganem,
I second.
cast your votes.
The motion carries 7-0, Mayor.
Moving on to item 3 is a motion to consent to the mayor's reappointments to the Planning Commission of Rosanna Yeager, Carl Nielsen, and Mitch Sawyer. These 3 individuals would be up for reappointment. I thank their willingness to serve another term and their work on the Planning Commission. And I would take any questions or comments from the council. If there are none, I would take a motion to approve these reappointments to the Planning Commission. Councilman Sukram,
I'll make that motion.
Councilman Horner,
I'll second.
cast your votes.
The motion carries 7-0, Mayor.
We'll move on to public hearings. Item 4 is resolution 2024-115, authorizing conditional use permit for auto sales at 540 South Broad Street. Now we'll have staff report.
Good evening, Mayor, members of the City Council, Jennifer Dam, Planning Director. This is a request for a conditional use for auto sales on a lot at 540 South Broad Street. At the time, it's been used as an auto sales facility since 2015. It's being sold. At the time that it became an auto sales facility, it was a use that was allowed with an approved site plan. Since then, the UDC changed and it requires a conditional use permit. Conditional use permits generally run with the person and not with the property. So the person that is purchasing it is requesting the conditional use permit. They will provide additional landscaping. The site plan is attached and staff recommends approval with the conditions stipulated in the staff report. I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Are there any questions for staff? Councilman Horner.
Yeah, thank you, Mayor. Yeah, Jennifer, just one is, I know with a conditional use permit, it runs with the owner, the current owner, and it expires when that ownership changes. But in a situation like this, where it's just going to continue to operate as it was already, I know it seems like a no-brainer, but if I were on the other side and I was buying that property, I would probably be a little bit more comfortable doing that if I knew for sure that I was going to be able to operate it as is. Is there anything that the city can do or that we could do with the conditional use that would stipulate if it's going to continue on, that it could, that it could, or is that just not something we can do?
We could do that. I would not recommend that. This is a very small lot. in an industrial area with a lot of traffic. If a person came in requesting a conditional use permit on this lot for auto sales today and it was not used for that, I would not recommend it. I would see redevelopment occurring in that area at some point in the future, and I think at some point in the future, we may want to see the use change.
Any other questions at this point from the council? Okay, I'll open the public hearing on this item. Seeing no comments, I'll close the public hearing. Are there any additional comments from council on this? Councilwoman Ganem?
No comment, just a personal one that my son is involved with the sale of that property, so I will abstain.
Councilman Sukram?
If there's no other comments, I'll make a motion for resolution 2024-115 for conditional approval.
Councilman Horner?
I'll second.
Cast your votes.
Motion carries 6-0 with 1 abstention, Mayor.
Moving on to item 5 is resolution 2024-116, vacating a portion of the Claremont Avenue right-of-way between Railroad and Cumming Street. Staff report.
Good evening, Mayor, members of the council, Jennifer Dam, Planning Director. This item is associated with 2 other items toward the end of the agenda, which is the change of zone on this strip of property, as well as the annexation of the property and the right-of-way. This will allow the property, once it's vacated, to be attached via the final plat that was previously approved and dedicated to the budding property owners. I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Questions for staff on this item? Okay, I'll now open the public hearing this item. Seeing no comments, I'll close the public hearing. Any additional comments from council? Councilman Horner?
None from me. If there are none from anyone else, I'd make a motion that we approve resolution 2024-116.
Councilwoman Ganem?
Second motion.
Cast your votes.
The motion carries 7-0, Mayor.
Moving on to item 6 is a resolution 2024-130 to approve a conditional use permit for an off-premises electronic message sign on property generally located at 4210 East County Road U Boulevard in Fremont, Nebraska. We'll have staff report.
Good evening, Mayor, members of the council, Jennifer Dam, Planning Director. This is a request for an electronic message sign. The property is generally located on 275, just at that southwest corner by Gallery 23. This is the second sign that you would be approving. It is more than 5,000 feet from the sign that was approved down by Morningside Road. It meets all of the requirements of section 11-82505. The Planning Commission recommended approval, and so does staff. I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Okay, any questions for staff on this item? Councilman Horner?
Just one quick one. I was reading this section, and I know we've talked a lot about signs. And I am curious, since this one is going right there by Gallery 23, I'm sure consideration was given on how it might affect that residential area right there. Jennifer, can you just speak a little bit to that?
Yeah, sure. The regulations stipulate that it dim at night. As I understand, the signs are designed so each pixel can be oriented away and down so that it shouldn't create any additional glare. And then it dims, auto dims at night.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions at this point? Okay, I'll open the public hearing on this item. Seeing no comments, I'll close the public hearing. Are there any additional comments from council on this? If there are none, I would take a motion. Councilman Sukram.
I'll make a motion on resolution 2024-084 for condition, or to approve conditional use permit for the sign.
It's 130.
2024-130.
Oh, I'm sorry. I stand correct. 130. Yep. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there a second? Councilman Jensen.
I'll second.
Cast your votes on resolution 2024-130.
Motion carries 7-0, Mayor.
Item 7 is resolution 2024-118 to approve conditional use permit for sand and gravel excavation to expand the area of sand and gravel excavation to the east encompassing approximately 110 acres.
Good evening, Jennifer Dam, Planning Director. This is a request for a conditional use permit for sand and gravel excavation. See if I can say that right. It is in the area of the Hills Farm Lake development and will expand the sand pit lake area that already exists. The staff is recommending conditional approval, as did the Planning Commission, and I would be happy to answer any questions.
Questions for staff? Okay. Seeing none, I will open the public hearing on this item. Seeing no comments, I will close the public hearing. Are there any additional comments from council on this? And if there are none, I would take a motion. Councilman Von Baron.
If I would move to pass resolution 2024-118.
Councilman Jensen.
I'll second that.
Cast your votes.
The motion carries 7-0, Mayor.
Item 8 is resolution 2024-119, conditional use permit to expand the non-standard use at 220 and 306 West Cloverly Road.
Good evening, Jennifer Dam, Planning Director. This request will allow the property, 3 different lots in this area to be subdivided and combined. Currently, several of the buildings do not meet the current setback requirements, so they're considered non-standard. Those buildings aren't being altered. About 6 years ago, we added this clause so that for commercial and residential buildings, we could allow those existing buildings that didn't conform to the setback requirements to remain and the property to be subdivided. So that's what they're doing here. And that's it. I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Any questions? I'll now open the public hearing in this item. Seeing no comments, I'll close the public hearing. Are there any additional comments from council on this? Councilman Horner.
No, if there's no other comments, I would make a motion that we approve resolution 2024-119.
Councilwoman Ganem.
Second.
Cast your votes.
The motion carries 7-0, Mayor.
Item 9 is resolution 2024-120, recommending approval of a Class D liquor license application for Malu Enterprises, Inc., doing business as cigarette and snack outlet at 521 North Broad Street.
Thank you, Mayor and Council. This item is for a Class D liquor license. Notice of the public hearing was placed in the Fremont Tribune on May 3rd of this year. The reports provided by the police department and the planning department provide positive recommendations, and I'd be happy to answer any questions you may have.
Any questions for staff on this? I'll now open the public hearing. Seeing no comments, I'll close the public hearing. Are there any additional comments from council? If there are none, I would take a motion. Yeah, okay, the applicant is here, so. Councilman Sukram.
I'll make a motion on resolution 2024-120.
know all your numbers are on
Make
there.
it sure.
Okay, Councilman Jensen.
I'll second that.
All right, cast your votes on this item.
The motion carries 7-0, Mayor.
Item 10 is resolution 2024-121, recommending approval of a Class C liquor license application for Katie Sidno LLC doing business as The Door, 325 North Main Street. Go ahead, Tyler.
Thank you, Mayor and Council. This is a Class C liquor license. Notice was published in the Fremont Tribune on May 4th, noticing the public hearing. Again, there's reports from the police and planning department providing positive recommendations for this item. I'd be happy to answer any questions you may have.
Questions? Okay, I'll open the public hearing on this item. I'll close the public hearing. Are there any additional comments from council on this? Councilman Jensen?
If there are no additional comments, I'll make the resolution to approve, make the recommendation to approve resolution 2024-121.
Councilwoman Ganem?
I'll second.
Cast your votes.
Motion carries 7-0, Mayor.
Moving on to the consent agenda, all items in the consent agenda are considered to be routine by the city council and will be enacted by one motion. There will be no separate discussion of these items unless a council member or a citizen so requests, in which event the item will be removed from the consent agenda and considered separately. Are there any items to be removed from the consent agenda by council or staff? Councilman Sukram.
I'd like to remove 21.
Any other items from staff? Okay. Items to be removed from the public? I would take a motion to approve the consent agenda 11 through 20. Councilman Jensen,
I'll make that motion.
Councilman Horner,
I'll second.
cast your votes.
Motion carries 7-0, Mayor.
Item 21 is a resolution 2024-117 to authorize the mayor to sign a contract with RDG Planning and Design to complete the update of the Unified Development Code. We'll have a staff report.
Good evening, Mayor, members of the City Council, Jennifer Dam, Planning Director. The city contracted in the past with House of Levine to do the comprehensive plan and Unified Development Code. After our last meeting with them and then the City Council Planning Commission study session, it became clear that our vision and their vision didn't quite align. So per the terms of the contract, I was instructed to send a letter to terminate that contract. I reached out to 3 different agencies to help us complete it. RDG was the only group that had bandwidth available at this point in time to be able to do that. And so we are signing this is a request to allow the mayor to sign the contract with them. There is funding available for this and staff recommends approval.
Questions? Councilman Sukram.
Yep, I just had really one is there a timeline on after we pass this? How we can move along through this? Because I was kind of hoping this would have been wrapping up.
You and I both. They are not able to start until July 1st, but they, in the contract, the timeline that they have is that it will be completed by the end of the year.
Good. You gave me shades of some things I remember some time ago. So thank you.
Mhm.
Any other questions on this item for staff? Councilman Von Baron.
And I think I talked with Jennifer a little bit, but I think we have a chance to, once the revisions are made by the new firm, we have a chance to go back and revisit this publicly with public comment and
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah. good. Thank you.
Any other questions from the council on this item? Anybody here to speak on this item?
Brad Yerger, 2318 East Fifth Street. I want to thank Councilman Sukram for pulling this off the agenda. I did want to speak to this. I have several questions myself. I had hoped that maybe tonight I would hear from council some of the similar questions that I have as a former councilman, quite honestly, and as a member of the public today. This particular contract for Jose Levin was a $500,000 contract when it was let before, and it included development of the comprehensive plan, the transportation plan, and the UDC. Of that $500,000, $140,000 of it was to complete the UDC rewrite. So I'm wondering if there are any legal ramifications with regards to our contract with Jose Levin for the fact that they apparently did not complete the task. At least they didn't complete it satisfactorily, according to the city. As a result, it resulted in a letter of termination of that agreement. Wondering also whether or not legal weighed in as to whether or not there are any contractual obligations associated with the termination. I realize the contract does allow for termination with notice, but were there any ramifications relative to any payment for undue services? Were there undue services because the UDC wasn't completed? Apparently some of the work was left undone and someone else is going to have to pick up and do it. And the staff report indicates that some of you, the mayor and planning commission members and maybe members of the public didn't see eye to eye with regards to what was going on in the UDC. It would be interesting to know what those reasons were, because they're apparently the reasons that this contract was terminated. I would have liked to have heard from some of you as to what you knew about the contract, the UDC, and what issues there really were if you're going to hire somebody else to complete the work that wasn't done by the original consultant. I'm concerned as to whether or not these were significant changes that would require another consultant to be hired to do the work. If $140,000 worth of work has been commissioned and paid for, and additional changes were sought but not completed by the original consultant, did we actually fulfill the $140,000 payment? And now we need to pay someone else $30,000 to do that work? Could the planning department and our $500,000 lawyers complete that work if it's minor tweaking of city code? I'm curious as to why this is just coming to light. I raised several issues from this side of the podium. Actually, I think I raised some while I was still on council as to when this project was going to get completed, but I know I raised the issues from this side of the podium many times in the past. We had changed several portions of code ourselves as a city, and I had asked whether those had been traversed to the consultant to be incorporated. Don't know whether that ever happened. I don't know whether those were some of the things that they didn't want to incorporate or failed to incorporate, but I know that the council was challenged to make sure those things were getting done. Did they get done? I'm really concerned, I guess, as to whether or not this was fully aired with you as council members, that is the termination of this agreement, why it was being terminated, and why you needed to hire somebody else to do the work now that it is before the council tonight. It would seem to me that you should all know that. I would hope that tonight you could articulate it. Perhaps when I sit down, you can and you will articulate it. I realize there's no discussion with me, but it would be nice to know that you actually understand why we're going to initiate a new contract now for $30,000 when we had a $500,000 contract with this group to get the work done in the first place. This was a major task. Complete rewrite of the UDC is a major task. So I acknowledge that. Tweaking for $30,000 seems actually kind of low unless it was 99 9/10% done. And if so, I don't understand why the original consultant didn't finish the work. Certainly our contract allowed for the city to make changes, to request changes, and for them to be accomplished. And if that didn't happen, I'd have to ask you all and legal, why are we paying the $140,000 portion of the contract Are we withholding some funds as a result of that or not? I hope eventually, before this item closes and you take a vote, you actually discuss amongst yourselves as to whether some of those things actually should have occurred. Thank you.
Any other, anybody else here to speak on this item? All right, any additional comments from council on this? Councilman Von Baron?
Yeah, just maybe for Travis, is there? I realize this has been kind of a back and forth. Is there any recourse from the city on something like this for work not completed?
Right, so what this would constitute is substitute performance. And at this point, all we're gonna be obligated to pay Houseo Levine is for work that they've actually performed. They're obligated to provide us with all the documents that they've prepared for the city. If it turns out that we are way overpaying for the substitute performance, we could analyze whether a claim should be filed, but at this point, it's cut off. We're gonna get this contractor to finish it for us, and it sounds like, according to Jennifer, this is a pretty good deal that we have.
So we will. I think I'm getting lost, a little bit lost in the terminology, but the point is, I think we'll review it for the whatever deficiencies that were there.
Yeah.
I'm not trying to pick this apart. I'm just trying to get my head straight.
No, that's correct. At this point, there's no viable issue, but certainly if something, their final bill is still outstanding. So once that comes back, we'll have a better picture.
Okay, thank you.
Any other comments? Councilwoman Lathrop?
As I've maybe heard some comments from some contractors in town that perhaps RDG has worked with the UDC here before, and it's much more user friendly, and I think and aligns more with what we want within the UDC, as I understand. Can you expand on that, Jennifer?
Sure. RDG is a firm out of Omaha. They did prepare the UDC prior to the one that we're under today. They've done a lot of work in Nebraska. They are familiar with the culture of Nebraska and the practices in Nebraska and Nebraska state statutes. And so that was one of the reasons why they have been selected.
I just want to say, I want to thank our planning department and our administration and the work that has gone into the comprehensive plan and the detail into the UDC, that we have taken this process very, very seriously. We have had multiple meetings with multiple stakeholder groups throughout the community. Houseo Levine did a great job. I mean, we got through the comprehensive plan. They got us to a point in the UDC that gave us the framework that we needed. And now with RDG, just as Jennifer said, they'll bring that Nebraska fit to our community that will, again, personalize this to our needs to help us continue to grow and provide a great quality of life here in Fremont. So they've got us all the way, they got us a long way. We just need this kind of last detail and work done by RDG to kind of put the finishing touches on what has been done. And, we are really taking this seriously and listening to all the feedback from all the stakeholder groups. And, we don't want to rush through this to where we don't, have it right, and we're able to enforce the changes and that it fits the community and we can move forward. And so there's a lot of detail that goes into this, and we just want to make sure it's done right. So that's really where this is coming from. And just commend the staff, the willingness to engage and communicate and talk through those changes and make this a great fit for the community. So. Are there any other comments from the council? Councilman Horner?
No, Mayor, if there are no other comments, I was just going to make a motion that we approve resolution 2024-117, authorizing you to sign the contract with our DG Planning and Design.
Councilman Sukram,
Second that.
cast your votes.
The motion carries 7-0, Mayor.
Item 22 is ordinance 5673 for a change of zone from GI General Industrial to AR Auto Urban Residential for a portion of the vacated Claremont Street located between Railroad Street and Cumming Street. This will be for final reading.
Good evening again, Jennifer Dam, Planning Director. This is the third and final reading on this change of zone. I'm here to answer any questions you might have.
Any questions? Thank you. Anybody here to speak on this item? Okay, any additional comments from council? If there are none, I would take a motion to hold final reading. Councilwoman Ganem,
I move that we hold final reading. Ordinance 5674.
7-3.
Oh, 7-3, I'm sorry. I move we accept ordinance 5673 for a change of zone from GI to AR.
Councilman Sukram. Okay, cast your votes.
Motion carries 7-0, Mayor.
We'll have final reading.
An ordinance of the city of Fremont, Nebraska, amending ordinance number 5427 as it pertains to the zoning map to rezone the property generally located at the southeast corner of Claremont Avenue and Cumming Street, legally described as that part of the Claremont Avenue right of way dedicated to the city of Fremont on August 9th, 2023, that is adjacent to Lot 1, Block 55, Hall subdivision located in Section 24, Township 17, North Range 8, east of the 6 p.m. Fremont, Dodge County, Nebraska, from GI General Industrial to AR Auto Urban Residential, providing for repeal of ordinances in conflict herewith, providing for severability, and providing an effective date on final reading.
Cast your final vote. Ordinance 5673.
Ordinance is approved 7-0, Mayor.
Item 23 is ordinance 5674, annexing a portion of the vacated Claremont Street located between Railroad Street and Cumming Street into the city of Fremont, and this would be for final reading.
Good evening again, Jennifer Dam, Planning Director. This is the final reading on the annexation for this piece of property. And from here, we'll be able to move on, sign the final plat and complete it.
Any questions? Councilman Warner.
Well, a comment first. Tonight it's the Jennifer Dam show.
Damn
Jennifer,
show.
now that we're on this last item and about how, I mean, I know there's been a lot of discussion around this thing, and there's been a lot of processes and steps getting here. About how long will it take once we get all this part of it done for that work to actually get done? And then hopefully we'll be able to see some results for those couple of properties down there that have been affected.
We had a conversation earlier last week with our Public Works Director. He thought that they would be able to work on the design of the drainage project by the end of this year and start next year, if I'm recalling correctly, Jody?
Any other questions? Anybody here to speak on this item? Okay. Any additional comments from council? If there are none, I would take a motion. This would be for final reading. Councilwoman Ganem.
I jumped ahead of myself a little bit here. I would move that we accept ordinance 5674, annexing a portion of the vacated Claremont Street located between Railroad Street and Cumming Street into the city of Fremont.
Councilman Horner. Okay, cast your votes.
Motion carries 7-0, Mayor.
We'll have final reading.
An ordinance of the city of Fremont, Nebraska, annexing by voluntary petition property generally located at the southeast corner of East Cumming Street and Claremore Avenue, Fremont, Dodge County, Nebraska, and extending the corporate limits to include said real estate, providing for repeal of ordinances in conflict herewith, providing for severability, and providing an effective date on final reading.
Cast your final vote, ordinance 5674.
The ordinance is approved 7-0, Mayor.
We'll move on to item 24, which is ordinance 5676, amending the Fremont Municipal Code, section 2-102 of the regular meetings. This would be for second reading. There is a request to suspend rules and move to final reading.
Thank you, Mayor. Travis Jacott, City Attorney. We had our first reading at the last meeting. This is to give council the discretion, if needed, to move the location of the meeting or the date and the time of the meeting. I believe I've heard from Council Member Ganem that there is a proposed amendment to define the term council chambers, which hasn't been defined previously. I would be fine with, I don't have any issues with that amendment. Did that kind of state what you were looking at, Council Member Ganem?
Yes.
And so what I would propose to the council is that we make a motion on that amendment and then have second reading, and I'll come back with a draft version at the next meeting for final reading encompassing that amendment if council wants to make it.
Okay.
That works.
Councilwoman Ganem.
Yes, would this be the appropriate time to make that amendment now then? Okay, it does just make it clarify. Sometimes we just assume everyone understands. And I know we did that in schools quite often too. There's just a basic understanding that we know where things are, what things stand for. But in that first part, we can insert an amendment. I would move that we insert the amendment on the second floor of the municipal building, just to explain where Chambers is located. And so that would be under the regular meetings of the city council shall be held in the city council chambers on the second floor of the municipal building. And the last Tuesday or whatever to go on there. But to insert on the second floor of the municipal building.
Well, that's perfect. If we want to do that, we could have third reading on that tonight then too, if we approve that amendment. Yeah, well said.
Okay. Before I'll come and address that amendment here shortly. Are there any additional comments from council? And then I'll move to Councilwoman Lathrop.
Do we need to be specific as in saying the address of the municipal building as 400 East Military Avenue? I don't know.
That would be up to council. I don't have a problem either way.
Councilman Jensen.
I don't know how specific we really want to get. I mean, yes, with this council, this is where we're meeting at, but 50 years from now, where are we going to be? And we're going to have to change things again if the building changes. I'm just asking.
Okay. Anybody else to speak on this from the council? Anybody from the public?
Red Yerger, 2318 East Fifth Street. I'll be brief. I want to thank Councilman Ganem for picking up and recommending to council an amendment to identify just exactly where council chambers was. That seemed to be one of the keys that was driving some change here in the original staff report. So thank you for making that amendment. At the last meeting, I also suggested to council that you might want to go into the next paragraph and insert a couple of words there as well with regards to the things that you want to be able to change. You're working on changing so you can have control over the location because you want some flexibility. I would think that you probably, and I suggested at that meeting, that you would probably want that flexibility for the date and time as well, as to when you would schedule your meetings, if you choose to move them off of a normal 7 o'clock start time or, to change the date of the meeting, which is typically on Tuesdays. If you wanted to do that, now is the time to change the location, date and time, cancel the meeting, et cetera, and be fully comprehensive about what you want to control. That was my suggestion at the last meeting. I'd suggest you consider it again as an additional amendment if you're going to make the first amendment on defining the municipal building. Thank you.
All right. We'll go back to the council comments here. Councilman Jensen.
Just a quick question for legal. I mean, doesn't the second paragraph says, and I'm quoting here, change the location, cancel or reschedule the meeting? I mean, doesn't that pretty much take care of what Brad was just discussing, that we can change the date, time and location?
Yes.
And I just want to be clear. I mean, we are going to have our council meetings on the second last Tuesday of the month at 7 o'clock as regularly scheduled meetings. This is again in regards to some of the changes that are happening up on the second floor, having to move the council meetings to another location for a temporary period of time. And so this is just giving us that ability right now to do that. But I mean, as a city, we are used to and we want to make sure any noticing of any kind of movement of the meeting is obviously properly noticed and given a lot of time. And so that's really the nature of what's going on here. So Councilman Jensen.
If there aren't further comments, I'll second Councilwoman Gannon's amendment.
Okay. There's been a motion to amend in a second. So I take a vote on that amendment.
The motion carries 7-0, Mayor.
Okay, we're back to the now the ordinance as amended at second reading. I would take a motion. Councilman Jensen.
I'll make the motion to hold second reading of ordinance 5676 as amended.
Councilman Sukram.
I'll second.
Cast your votes.
The motion carries 7-0, Mayor.
Second reading.
An ordinance of the city of Fremont, Nebraska, repealing and replacing chapter 2, article 1, section 2-102 of the Fremont Municipal Code and other codes and ordinances and parts of ordinances in conflict with this ordinance, providing when this ordinance shall be in full force and effect on second reading.
Councilman Jensen.
As legal as established, if it's all right, we'll go ahead and I'll make the request to suspend the rules and move ordinance 5676 to the third and final reading as amended.
Councilman Horner.
I'll second.
Cast your votes.
Motion carries 7-0, Mayor.
Final reading.
An ordinance of the city of Fremont, Nebraska, repealing and replacing chapter 2, article 1, section 2-102 of the Fremont Municipal Code and all other ordinances or parts of ordinances in conflict with this ordinance, providing when this ordinance shall be in full force and effect on final reading.
Cast your final vote. Ordinance 5676.
Ordinance is approved 7-0, Mayor.
Move on to new business. Item 25 is resolution 2024-127, directing staff to begin the process for the rehabilitation of the Cavich parking garage.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor, members of council. Jody Sanders, pinch hitting for Justin Sutterman, who is out of the office. Justin was able to get the recommendation from Speece Lewis. They worked with a couple of different vendors, as you can see in the attachments to the staff report, to determine an approximation of what it would cost to completely tear down the structure and replace it with a single surface parking lot, or if we went down the road of trying the rehabilitation on the garage itself, and then also do some preventative maintenance so that we don't have, it deteriorating to the point where it is today. By the time it's all said and done, Justin was very clear that he was concerned. If you read through the portions for the rehabilitation from, I believe it was McGill, they're very careful to say, we don't know what we'll find when we get in there. So there's some question. It's not a for certain when you're looking at the staff report. Here's what the removal and replacement at $600,000. And then if we were to rehabilitate the largest amount there is 510, but it could swing one way or the other by quite a lot. And he even made a reference to the Bell Street Viaduct, where that was a perfect example of once you get in there, you don't know what you're going to find. But ultimately, looking at it from the perspective of Justin didn't have trouble with us bringing this tonight and talking about it because he didn't really believe that it was an engineering question. It was a fiscal question. How do we want to spend the money that's entrusted to us? Do we want to reinvest in the existing parking lot? Do we want to remove it and just put a flat surface parking lot there? That would be, I think, somewhat of a short-term solution. The second portion of the second layer of the parking garage is rarely used for much more than as a venue for those that want to have an outdoor party. But is it enough to just have that single lot? Ultimately, that's what you're being asked to decide is the best way to handle it. The way that the resolution that you see before you is worded is you're instructing staff to begin the process of the rehabilitation of that garage as it stands today.
Thank you. Councilman Von Baron.
Yeah, a couple of questions, Jody. As we look at rehab and maintenance, there's quite a wide range of costs, obviously. Are we trying to encompass worst possible case for contingencies? Is that basically what that 500,000 plus is saying?
I don't know that the 510 would include all the contingency. In the next paragraph right below that little chart, Justin mentions that, we could have an increase of 20 to 30% more than the 510, for the
Even
unknowns.
over the 510.
Right.
Okay. Second question, and I noticed Speece Lewis recommended that we remove it and just replace it. If we do that, do we end up with just one uncovered level? Is that basically what that? Okay. So that also, if we don't have the second deck, is part of the rehab and the redo. That also relieves the problem of ongoing maintenance with water damage, the sealer, the $210,000 for the. So, okay.
Right.
All right. Thank you.
Mhm.
Councilman Horner.
Yeah, Jody, just so I'm clear on this, removal and replacement at $616,000, and then rehabilitation and preventative maintenance at 3 to 5. If we go that route, do both of those things need to be done, or is it one or the other?
It's one or the other. The rehabilitation would leave us with 2 levels. But obviously they're not going to stop until they're convinced that they've gotten all the deterioration mended.
Okay, so removal and replacement option is where we take it out and we end up with a flat surface.
They're going to take it out, but they're very confident. The engineers have been very confident that it's not the kind of thing where you just kind of scrape off the top and you leave it. It would be tearing it, that whole section, including the section that's not covered now, tearing it all out and installing one new parking lot there. The question with that is, will it meet our future needs? It seems like to me, $600,000 is a lot to invest in something that ultimately we may not want in the long term. I don't know. Right now, it doesn't appear, we're working on getting a parking study put together, but it doesn't appear that we need it just based on how that second story is being used.
You know, I mean, for me, it's a lot of money. Either way we look at it.
Yes.
It's a big decision as well too, because if you rehabilitate, you do preventative maintenance and you end up right back here where you are in another couple of years, then we're going to be kicking ourselves. I guess to the rest of the council, I'd like a little more time. I don't really want to make this decision tonight. I'd like a little bit more time to think about it and maybe talk to some of you guys about it and maybe some of the people at the city too. I don't know how you guys feel.
Councilwoman Ganem.
Well, Councilman already asked some of my questions because it was partly the time and the future. And we haven't done the study because we have discussed this before, that we're going to have a parking issue downtown with lack of parking, especially as apartments are being rented out, that's been used by them in the evenings. The county courthouse basically uses a lot of staff use the parking lot for their parking. So where are our future needs with that? And have we done a study? So do we need more time to kind of determine, do we in fact need that? Because right now I would lean toward rehabilitation with regular inspections done on that building. And if we do tear it all down and replace, then we in fact will be losing some parking stalls because we need to follow our own guidelines, our own ordinances, and certainly make it decorative, and it's not just going to be a flat slab on that. So we'd have to make sure it fits to the downtown. But we've talked about, so you mentioned a study, will there be a parking study?
That's in the plans. The VID has asked us to consider doing a parking study. Conventional wisdom says that, at least as far as I understand, people in Fremont think there's a parking problem because they can't park right in front of the door of the place they want to go. But not one of us think twice about, say, I'm going to the Orpheum Theater. I will park 2, 3, 4 blocks away to get the lower parking rate, to go see a show at the Orpheum or dinner in the Old Market. People are used to paying for parking garages and don't think anything of it. But we're kind of spoiled in our small community where we want to park right at that front door.
Councilman Jensen.
I did echo some of what Councilman Ganem said. I would lean heavily towards the rehab and preventative maintenance. Even if you go clear to the top end of that, you're at 600,000 or even beyond that a little bit, you still got a 2-level place. This is a property that's down in downtown Fremont that we could want to develop at some time. And I think that has the option of possibly being the cheapest option for us now and leaving a covered garage. I'd like to keep, that's where my head is right now, is on the rehabilitation and preventive maintenance.
Councilwoman Lathrop.
I think maybe we need to look at some options as far as some paid parking in there, maybe with the people who are utilizing that. If the 505 lofts are using that as covered parking, maybe there could be an additional permit for that. If it's primarily used for county employees, is there a chance that we could ask them to maybe help with some of these renovations? Just a few things to explore, and maybe that would come up in the parking survey too, but just something to look at.
Okay. Are there any other comments of those that haven't spoken? And we'll come back after comments from the public. Okay, any comments from the public on this item?
Brad Yerger, 23 18 East Fifth Street. I appreciate Councilman Horner's suggestion that maybe this takes more study and probably not an item that ought to go through initially tonight. And I appreciate some of the other comments that are made by others relative to restoration. My thoughts go a little bit further than some of what's been expressed here tonight. I remember being on council, and it wasn't that long ago, we paid, I believe, a consultant to come in or an engineer to come in and evaluate that facility to see whether or not we were going to put a covered roof on level 2, or whether we were even going to expand it to a 3-level parking facility, because structurally, when it was originally built, it was supposed to be expandable. I'm rather appalled, quite honestly, as a citizen of Fremont, since that was done not that long ago, that now we're in a mode of we might have to tear it down. We paid for engineering assessment and it deteriorated pretty rapidly, it seems to me. We also did make some overtures to the 505 building when they went in as to providing them the availability of some parking in that facility. So I agree with statements made that needs to be a consideration. I also agree with the fact that, and we've talked about it in the past, that this ought to perhaps be paid parking, especially for those that are parking on a regular basis for free that work for the county. They not only use it during the day, they park overnight. And if we have to pay to renovate the building, maybe they truly ought to be paying for some of the renovations or maintenance or whatever, if they want, in essence, permanent stalls in that arena. So I think that was a valid suggestion that we should be exploring as well. I think it's important to the downtown growth of Fremont that we make sure that we do have adequate parking. I know the statements have been made that people don't want to walk a block. That may be true, but as we develop downtown and put more above business residential dwelling, those people are going to need a place to park. Yes, they can park on the street based on ordinance changes, but in the winter, when they have to remove their vehicles, they have to get off the street, they have to go someplace. They're going to need parking. So we've had parking issues before. That facility was providing it. It was the main parking facility for downtown Fremont. I would strongly encourage renovation or ensuring that that's a multi-level facility when you're done and not a flat slab that will restrict the number of parking stalls significantly in the heart of downtown. That was the issue, and it always has been the issue. That's the heart of downtown parking. Just as it is when you go to the old market, they have a parking facility there and they have parking outside the businesses, but their multi-level parking facility in Old Market gets a lot of use. Once Fremont is developing downtown as it should, you're going to need the parking. So I think making sure that we accommodate the future as you consider what you want to do and what you want to spend, I think the public will be interested in making sure you make wise decisions on providing for the future of parking and following through on the commitments that you've made to the 505 building and to others that are currently living downtown when they have to get off the street. That action has been started. We are seeing above business dwellings being renovated downtown. So I encourage you to make sure that we're not cutting those people off at the knees by not providing them adequate off-street parking. Those are just some of my thoughts, I guess. I would encourage you to perhaps do as Councilman Horner said and delay this for further investigation and discussion. I certainly applaud also doing the parking study with a bent on making sure that you're accommodating future growth in Fremont, not just existing or past usage. Thank you.
Any other comments from the public? Councilman Sukram?
Yeah, I would kind of agree to wait for the parking study and look this over real good and make sure we make enough parking for the future as well.
So I just want to, I think we're making some great points in council. Yeah, you have a vote on this tonight on what you want to do. I guess I would say, you know, in the staff report, January 26th, we noticed kind of the deterioration and had to close the lot out of an abundance of caution. So we're sitting here May. So we have a group, you know, folks downtown that have had, you know, lack of parking options for this amount of time. And I guess I would say, yes, we have great ideas, and I think, yes, we need to do a parking study, but we have a piece of infrastructure, a parking garage that we have to decide and make a decision on what we want to do with it. And if we're going to rehab it, you know, I know Public Works has a lot of projects working on this year to get to. And so the longer we drag this out, the less options we have now. If we know we're going to rehab it and this is the work we're going to do, you know, we can expand it and look at our options later and do the study. But at the end of the day, we have a lot that can't be used right now, a garage. So I think, you know, staff has done a good job evaluating where we're at. And, you know, the longer we delay, if that's what you decide to do, I think we got to keep in mind that we're, you know, the folks downtown have had a lack for a while now. So Councilman Jensen.
Yeah, I guess that's kind of the point I was going to make. There is no crystal ball. We can study from here till Thursday, and we don't know for sure. If we need to, I'm in the camp that let's make this decision. Let's do the rehab and preventive maintenance, and let's move forward with this tonight. But I'll certainly listen to what others in the council have to say.
Councilman Horner.
Joey, this is the last time I'll say anything on this. You know, I just want to clarify, I would like a little more time. Joey, I hear you, and I think this is urgent, and I would like to treat it that way. I would like a little more time. I would like to hold off at least until the next council meeting, just so that we can have some time to digest this and talk, and make sure that we're making the right decision. I lean towards rehabilitation and preventative maintenance as well. But I just want to make sure that we're doing the right thing. And I think just holding off for maybe one more cycle here and let's bring it back, it would be my hope, is that we could then at least feel a little bit better about that decision.
Councilman Von Baron.
Yeah, I don't mean to just be in a me too mode, but I think there's one critical piece here, and that's that we really don't know what the parking needs are downtown. When you look at it from strictly structural standpoint, it probably, since the second deck is basically only used as a venue, do we really need that deck? If we go ahead and rehab it and commit to the deck, now we've also committed to $15,000 to $20,000 a year waterproofing maintenance, no matter which option you choose. And I think this deserves some more thought before we get into that. Personally, unless we, and here's where the parking study comes in, unless we can show that there's legitimate need or will be. I mean, there was legitimate point made about summer parking versus winter snow removal parking. There may be a time when we say, hey, that second level is going to be critical. But without knowing, if we choose to just rehab and maintain it, we're also committing ourselves to that ongoing obligation of waterproofing and maintenance. And I'm just, bottom line, I'd say let's take some more time with this, but I really think we need to have a lot better understanding of what we're dealing with. If I could make one more point, I think that Councilwoman Lathrop does make a good point. The county heavily utilizes this, and I certainly don't begrudge them that, but I certainly don't think it would be unreasonable to ask them to share in some measure in a cost sharing program.
Okay. Anybody else from council that hasn't spoke right at this moment would like to speak? Councilman Dinkins.
Just to try to clarify, the way I read this is the sealer is every 1 to 2 years at 30,000, or the membrane at a cost of 241,000. I'm not reading where you have to do that sealer every year if you do the membrane. So just to clarify that.
Okay. Well, then I would entertain any kind of motion that you'd like to give at this moment. Councilman Von Baron.
Yes, given this I would like to move to continue this to our May 28th meeting.
Councilman Horner,
I'll second that.
okay, cast your votes to continue.
The motion carries 5-2, Mayor.
Okay, we'll move on to item 26 is resolution 2024-128, approving an outdoor special event application process.
Thank you, Mayor and Council. So we've been working on this for a little while. So some of our goals, we wanted to ease the application process for applicants and also for the city council to review the applications as well. We want to continue to support the vibrancy of the community and the community spirit of Fremont, and then make improvements for safety, quality of life, and enhance fiscal responsibility. We last discussed this on May 9th, and given that discussion, a few changes have been made. One is we were proposing a $75 application fee. Given people are working with budgets in this current cycle, we're looking at, not levying those now, but asking for the city council to consider some fees in the winter period here before the next outdoor event season sort of begins. We had discussed, 60 days, advance of the event is when they would need to submit their application to give, adequate time for review. So that is included. A 60-day calendar to be put together to help applicants know exactly when their deadlines would be for that. And then there was initially a proposal to have events end 2 hours after sunset. We wanted to move towards a set time for events to end. And so we've kind of landed on 11 o'clock PM, which coincides with when the city's parks close. So that's kind of where we are at following the discussion from our last meeting. I know we were expecting some discussion with regards to security at these events and what's needed, and kind of get some feedback on that and see if we need to make some additional changes. And so I'd be happy to provide any more information if I can. Thank you.
Any questions for our clerk? Councilwoman Ganem?
No, I did have some questions. Number one, will the city events that maybe say Parks and Recs provide also have to follow the same guidelines that we're asking nonprofits to follow?
So I did speak with Nick Hansen, and we have softball events, and he's not familiar with security being at softball events. For those park type facilities, they wouldn't be required to have an outdoor special event permit. For example, if you have an event in John C. Fremont Park and it's at one of the pavilions that someone can rent, they wouldn't need one of these. But if it's spilled over into like a right of way or in a street or something like that, then it would need one. So yeah.
Well, maybe I better narrow it down to maybe security at these events, because I certainly have gone to events that have well over 300 people. I've gone to some of the ball events just last year that have well over 300. I'm just saying, if we're requiring nonprofits and groups to have security, should we not also follow that guideline? So we're exempting ourselves? Is that what we're doing then? So we exempt ourselves from not having to have security if we have over 300 people at an event. That's how I understand that.
I don't have a
Right.
comment on that.
Okay, that says something. And then I know if we're saying security, if more than 300 people at a time, there'll be a minimum of one security person and one more security person for each 300. I know our police department can't provide all that security, but at the same time, we say whether paid or volunteer, we can have volunteer security, just people around that will have no duties other than maintaining order and enforcing the permit conditions. So when we have events like our Christmas walk, the Halloween bash that we have, and we have thousands of people that attend it, if they had to pay, some of those costs would be into thousands of dollars because it would depend on if you use a service that you rent or if you had to use security, anywhere from $60 to $100 per person per hour. If you use volunteers, that would take away some of those funding items and still have someone as a contact. If something should happen, to call 911, then the police could in fact identify a person to go to among all that group to say, to find out what's going on, if we make that call. Is that how I understand that would happen? And I don't know, I know Chief Elliott is here, if he could speak to that a little bit.
Good evening, Jeff Elliott, Chief of Police. So what I'm telling you is I'm giving you an opinion. That's
Okay.
it. That if we have these events, that it is best practice to have some sort of security at these events, whether that's 300 or 500 or whatever number you set. If I had my way, I would have it be trained security or certified police officers, but that's not feasible because you couldn't find the police officers and the trained security is going to be expensive. I understand that. So I think Tyler has done the best job he can by trying to find a compromise solution to bring in to allow us to have some sort of security. And while it's certainly not perfect, it's not what I would like to have. I think that the compromise solution is the best, and that is to have somebody there that would be responsible for security. In the event they have a medical emergency or a dispute, a fight, theft of something, when they call the police can have a point of contact and find out quicker what's going on. Additionally, you can't rely on the police to do security in these events. Most times you've got 4, maybe 5 cruisers working in the entire city. 2 calls that occur at the same time will use up your entire patrol force. So if you have these events, my opinion is that you should have security. Whether that's feasible and whether you guys think you can do that is up to you folks.
I'd like to add too, there's, a unique situation where you have events that maybe go 1 or 2 days where, you might have an event where 10,000 people attend. And so obviously you're not going to have the number of security people that, you do the math on that. And so figuring out something where it's like, well, what is your peak attendance going to be? And then kind of go from there. There's not a perfect solution there.
No, John C. Fremont Days, that's a city celebration. I understand that. And they do use React, but I don't think they use it partly for security as at the parade routes.
They use React only used for traffic control. The police department at that point is stretched thin. The police department has provided security for John C. Fremont Days for the last 30 some years that I've been here. And that money comes out of the police budget.
And I don't think people thought about the baseball games that are just packed. And oftentimes it's leagues that are playing, so they would be responsible for providing security.
Whether you folks want to do that, it's up to you. Again, my opinion is that if you have these events and you've got that many people there, there should be some sort of security.
Okay, I would recommend and I have another question then. Have we compared what other cities do? And maybe that's a Jody question or a Joey question. Have we compared what other cities have done? Then you've done the comparison.
So when it comes
Tyler?
to liquor licensing and the SDLs, that, is uniform across the state. I can take a closer look at what other communities do with regards to security. I don't have that on the top of my head, but I do recall security being addressed in their applications. And so I can bring that back.
I would like to make a motion that we continue this at the next meeting so we can gather some additional information before we go forward on this.
Okay.
Are there other things that council has concerns about or other things that I don't want to keep just kicking the can down the road that we get this
question settled and then we go the next time. I mean, because we'd hoped when we brought it in April that we would get the feedback from you all in terms of kind of a direction of where you wanted to go. And so if there are other comments or questions or concerns that you'd like to see addressed, now would be a great time to offer those up or get in contact with Tyler or myself.
Motion to continue is a privileged motion, so Councilman Gannon would have to relinquish that motion to have any further discussion. So that's up to you, Councilman Gannon.
I certainly would relinquish that motion to have further discussion because there are other areas. That's true.
Okay, thank you, Councilman Horner.
I just want to say real quick, Jody, I think that this is one of those kind of things, and guys, I think this is one of those kind of things that it's nice to just see this process kind of getting put into place because we really haven't had it before. And so having it kind of, spelled out, I think is going to be great. And, we get something like this going and hopefully if we see that it has, some needs to be, revised or tweaked, that we can do that as we go. I think Sally is raising a good point about security. And so maybe if we get that hammered out, I don't have any other issues on it myself.
Councilman Jensen.
Yes, I agree with Councilman Horner there. This, we can get something in place and tweak it as we need. I don't think, we can sit here and kick things down the road all the time and there's never going to be a crystal ball. There's never going to be a perfect answer. We just need to move forward and adjust things as we're required to.
Councilman Von Baron.
Yeah, I think the thing that I'm struggling with on this, things like insurance and all are pretty straightforward. We can gauge those in terms of dollars and amounts. The one that's harder for me to gauge is security. I don't know if there's any liability from the city standpoint of not having standards or having standards, but on one hand, an event with 300 people probably, or let me put it another way, an event with 5,000 to 10,000 people may not require a lot more security personnel than an event of 300 people. So my point is, I don't think we have anything to measure against. Is there such a thing as an industry standard, best practices, what other cities are doing? Could we just simply, I'm fine passing this if we agree to come back and just refine this security issue.
Okay. All right. Well, I'll just say the whole point of going through this process was to better serve the applicants, better serve the community in these events. We've been having a lot of events lately, which is absolutely fantastic. We love having events and getting our community together for celebrations and parades throughout the community. As we get more of those, just to help the administrative process behind the scenes. So, we're not putting out barricades last minute, or we're not, we can serve the applicant and the event and the community the best way we possibly can to help this event go off as good as possible. So, that's the intent, I believe, behind this. And these are all good points. And I think the security, with the cost and has to be taken into consideration. And Chief Elliott's concern does too. So, if we do this and continue it, just, we'll look at that. And again, if there's anything else, we'd like to bring this back, with the concerns addressed, and we'll work with this for a while. And again, if we need to change it, we will. So, Councilwoman Ganem.
Real quick question then, when would this be implemented?
So what we're thinking is, the fees not, but because we are simplifying the process and making it easier on folks, I would want to, once the city council approves it, get people using the new documents as soon as possible.
It seems like we should have some answers though, or if we're going to approve it, it should be the city should abide or follow the same guidelines that we're asking everyone else to follow. So I suggest the city also follow the same guidelines that we're asking others to do when we have large groups. Provide volunteers for security if that's a crux of information, we need to provide security and not exempt ourselves. It just doesn't, that does not hit me. That just does not seem fair to me. That's a personal opinion.
I don't know if Chief would like to comment on this, but it would seem to me that if the police were called to a ball field, they most likely would go to the referees that are there as the point of contact. You know, if that's, I guess the question is, you know, is it, we think a brawl is going to break out, which can, you know, sometimes the Little League parents can get a little crazy, but, you know, in any case, is that something that the police would view is, you know, go to the referee or the coaches? I don't know.
Jeff Elliott, Chief of Police. So what I would say is if you designate the referees as your security, I think that solves your problem. You could do that. I'm sure there's other situations though that she's thinking about other than just the ball games that would apply. I know that when the school has events like this, they have lots of people there, but those are on FPS property and they do try to hire security for those. Try to is the thing is they can't always get people to do these things.
Right now, is it an evaluation of the event? And then that's if we recommend security or not? I mean, how is it done currently?
Right now, there is no security required for any event other than those with a SDL. And I got to say this too, you're not going to break my heart if you decide not to do this. I'm just telling you what I think the best thing to do is, and that is to have security. You don't want to do that? I got no dog in this fight. Well, until my guys get called. So.
Okay, thank you, Chief.
Thank you. My thought was just, we need to make it feasible for groups to be able to use this and make it applicable and usable. And I think having it consistent, I'd like to give kudos certainly to the groups and people that have put this together, because it's better than not having anything. And it's definitely, you put some thought and time to it. It would be nice to find out what other cities are in fact doing and how they handle that, because cost is a factor in some of this too as we're going forward. And definitely insurance, that is just straightforward. I certainly agree with that. A lot of it is straightforward. The application, the forms look easy to complete, easier to complete. But I just want to make sure that we're not putting barriers up in front of people that they can't meet as well either. So maybe, you know, I would certainly go along with passing it as long as we can come back and maybe address security, so that people don't feel that they have to hire if that's a blocking point.
All right, I'll go out if there's any comments from the public and I'll come back. Is there anybody from the public here to speak on this item? Okay, now we'll reset and come back. Additional comments from council, Councilman Horner.
I don't recall. Is there a motion on the floor?
No, it was relinquished.
Okay. So if I could be so bold, if there are no other comments, I would make a motion that we approve the resolution before us right now, 2024-128, and do that with the caveat that the security piece will be open for improvement, or however we want to say that. on an ongoing basis, so we can at least get this thing implemented and going, and then we'll take a look at the security. So Travis,
If I could, I would say we could make an amendment to approve the resolution with the current requirements for security at ISTL events.
that works.
Okay. That would be the amendment. So is there a second to that? Councilman Jensen?
I'll second that amendment.
Cast your votes.
The motion carries 7-0, Mayor.
Councilman Jensen,
Now I'll make the motion to approve resolution 2024-128 as amended.
Councilman Sukram,
I'll second.
cast your votes.
Motion carries 7-0, Mayor.
Item 27 is resolution 2024-129, amending the natural gas supply contract with Public Energy Authority of Kentucky. PEAK.
Mayor, City Council, Jeff Shanahan, Utility General Manager. This is we're at the reset period on this prepaid gas agreement that council approved in 2018. And so this resolution talks about two different items. One is if we want to get it back to the original 30-year term, which the bond consultants are saying we can achieve a 10 to 12 cent greater discount if we take the additional add years on it to get to a 30-year term. The other item is that it allows the mayor or myself, the utility general manager, to be able to sign these documents as they come through to us. Because once they go out and they start issuing these bonds and they get the rates, we have to be able to make the decision at that point. We won't be able to have the time to come back to council in 2 or 3 weeks and get it on the agenda. So we did this with the CPEP agreement that you passed a few months ago. And this is a similar type of activity with just a different organization that does it. The other thing that this does is that it's not really in this resolution, but it, as part of the agreement, what happens is gas gets sold at an index price. With BP being the supplier, it's usually sold at an index price plus a premium. There's not going to be just the premium. There won't be the premium. So it'll just be the index price. So that really won't show up on the discount, but it is a discount really in the price of gas during in this peak agreement.
Questions for Mr. Shanahan on this, Councilman Jensen?
Jeff, I didn't go to the UDC today. Did, I know it went to them today. How did that vote go?
Yeah, it was 5-0.
Councilman Von Baron?
Jeff, once you get a rate quote, what's the response cap? What's the response limit? You said, obviously you can't wait 2 to 3 weeks. What
They'll do is they want to get it going as soon. If they don't achieve a rate, they'll then wait and then they'll go out and try it again and try to get the best rate they can. But at some point, they've got to lock it in.
So when they try again, is that 24 hours later or 2 days later?
Could be any number of days. It could be 2 weeks. It could be 2 days. It's wherever the interest rates are at. And we see where they're moving interest rates all the time right now. So I don't really have an exact date that I could give you that they want to know the answer. And they just tell us they need to know it. They want our commitment, yes or no. If we don't do this, there is in the original contract, there's a 20-cent discount that is a minimum that you get. If they don't achieve the 20-cent discount, you can get out of it. You really then just go to market. You get no discount on the gas. You pay the market price. And then if they achieve a discount at the next reset period, then you're back in, but you're still buying your gas through BP through this process. It's just you're not getting a discount on it. So the contract originally said they wanted to you were going to achieve a 20-cent. We've been achieving about 25 cents. We're hoping to get in the 35 to 37 cent discount if we extended that additional to get it to the full 30-year term.
Thank you.
Additional questions? Anybody here to speak on this item? Seeing no comments, are there any additional comments from council on this? If not, I'd take a motion. Councilman Sukram,
I'll make the motion to approve resolution 2024-129.
Councilman Jensen,
Second?
cast your votes.
Motion carries 7-0, Mayor.
Councilman Jensen,
Motion to adjourn?
Councilman Sukram,
Second.
cast your votes.
Motion carries 7-0, Mayor.
We are adjourned. Have a good night, everybody.
You.